Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at Mars moving into Libra, where it will be co-present with the south node of the moon for quite some time. We're going to talk today about why that's a big deal. There are some themes that come up whenever Mars is in Libra that we've already made ourselves aware of through a deeper dive into the archetypal meaning of Mars in Libra. It was last week that we did that. But we're going to go a little bit deeper today because when Mars is in Libra and is co-present with the south node of the moon, you get the volume turned up on some very specific themes that we should make ourselves aware of. That's the idea for today. So anyway, before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments in the comment section. You guys know that this really helps the channel to grow, so we really appreciate it. Also, if you want to give us a positive review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you listen to us there, we really appreciate that. You can find a transcript of any of my daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. And when you're over there, be sure to check out all of my readings and upcoming courses. If you have any questions about booking a reading or getting involved in one of our classes, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. All right, well, I'm going to put up the real-time clock, and first I want to show you Mars in Libra and the journey it will take. Let's advance this just a couple of days here. So Mars enters, oops, here we go. There we go. So Mars enters Libra August 27th, and then we're going to see Mars moving through the sign of Libra. I'm just going to advance this one day at a time, where it is now co-present with the south node of the moon. From late August, Mars is in Libra, finally crossing the south node of the moon, making that conjunction around October 5th, at which point it will also be in an engagement with a square to Pluto. So it gets real intense right around the beginning of October. And then we see that shortly after that, it enters Scorpio and is separated from the south node. So this is late August through, about mid-October that we have Mars working through the same sign that the south node of the moon is currently occupying. If we add, this is really interesting. I'm just going to show you a few little highlights. I'm going to add Pluto in and the sun and moon so that you can see what's coming right after Mars leaves Libra and having squared Pluto and crossed the south node of the moon. We get a solar eclipse in Libra just a couple of days later on October 14th. So it's quite a confluence of planets coming together around the south node in about mid-October. Is led by Mars and it's square to Pluto, and then boom, we get the Libran eclipse. So very powerful transit, and I have some things that I think you'll be glad to know. 5 things to watch for, given the intensity of the overall transit of Mars through Libra with the south node, but culminating in a square to Pluto and then a solar eclipse in Libra around the middle of October. So the first thing to watch for is that the potential for Mars in Libra, maybe the most exciting potential, is for us to be reaching agreements, compromises, resolution, to find a mediator or a mediating balancing effect in relationships, contracts, negotiations. And maybe given the south node of the moon and its tendency to, it's long been associated in the Indian astrological tradition with things that we have internalized, lessons, wisdom that we've internalized from the past, but that also it's like the south node kind of cools us off from the propensity of the north node to get us entangled in life through our desires and through the feeling that if I only do this or I only do that, then I'll be fully satisfied. The south node, through its inherent wisdom, can pull us away from the potentially devastating effects of, chasing fantasies and longings and desires in a destructive manner. So the south node of the moon is super helpful in that respect. But when Mars in Libra, a place where Mars is debilitated because Mars is in Venus's sign, so it's got to act like Mars in a house that looks like Venus. That's tricky. But then you're also pairing it with that sort of internalized wisdom of the past that the south node represents that can steady us from making reckless or impulsive choices, but may also act regressively in some manner, keeping us back. Well, one of the benefits of having Mars in Libra is thus that we may have the internalized wisdom to reach a place of agreement, compromise, resolution, or mediation, especially when there is a challenge, a kind of a challenge to find that accord with other people. It may be challenging, a Mars word, to find agreement or harmony with other people, but especially with the South Node, this may be something that we have to do. That it's by the force of necessity, we have to call upon the wisdom that we've gained through all of our experiences, maybe this life, maybe in past lives, to deal with something difficult and to find agreement through the challenge or frustration. So that's one thing to watch for, is that the heat getting turned up on that kind of work. Number two, the tipping of the karmic, because I tend to envision everything that we're doing like we're in a little crock pot, and sometimes the heat gets turned up. Anyway, number two would be the tipping of the karmic scales. So this is the sign of the scales, of the balance. And so when Mars is a planet, the polar opposite sign of Libra, of course, is Aries, where the light takes over, and in Libra, the dark takes over for the dark half of the year. So when you reach the signs of the equinox, really in either direction, Aries or Libra, the scales are tipping somehow. And there will be a balancing, a reckoning. I don't like the word reckoning, sounds like, it sounds like punitive or something. But actually, I looked this up here. Let me show you this. So, So the word reckon means to count up, to recount, to make calculations, to arrange in order, to put back into a straight line something that has been moving like crookedly, or something like that. So when you think about to reckon, a karmic reckoning, what you're thinking of is suddenly, a bill is coming due. And for those of us who are trying to do the work, we know that these are like little chiropractic adjustments from the universe. It's not out to get us. It doesn't have to be a punitive thing. But when the scales tip, it's because they have to, because they're measuring or balancing something out. This can be a little bit more extreme, intense, or confrontational when Mars is in Libra and with the south node of the moon, which again pushes us into conversation with the karmic past or our karmic history. Number three are conflicts that test us. So in general, Mars in Libra can speak to diplomacy and the need. Like, for example, I would say that a huge amount of clients' charts that I see Mars in Libra in will have a real strong, passionate concern for justice or fairness or the law, or they might be an activist type. You know what I mean? So that they're advocating for something throughout their life. Well, when Mars is in Libra, there will be conflicts that come up in relationships, or ethical or moral conflicts. And there is a sense of being tested by these conflicts when Mars is with the south node of the moon. It's as though our growth, our values, are we walking our talk? These things are being tested by conflicts that arise and how we handle them. How do you respond to a conflict? Tactfully, carefully. Number four are social advantages versus disadvantages that are highlighted. And this may be a place where you can become aware of just how toxic certain relationships are that maybe have been advantageous up until now, but you know what? Doesn't feel right. So we have to let go of it. On the other hand, you could be looking at the kinds of relationships that are going to offer you a clear advantage. These are the type of people I should hang out with. They share my values, they share my goals, they share my mission, especially where there's a sense of mission drivenness, of ambition, of purpose, of action toward similar or compatible desires or outcomes. Mars and Libra can really clarify for us, these are the people that are going to help me advance in my goals, my learning, my development, my craft, and so forth. On the other hand, those people or situations socially that are going to hold you back somehow, they'll become amplified during this period. And there's a sense of history behind this, or history repeating itself with the south node of the moon. Now, the other thing that can happen with Mars in Libra is we can explore social advantages and disadvantages from a very vain, selfish, opportunistic point of view, which means that our egos and their concern with whether or not not really do we share a soul connection with people, or not evaluating our social connections from a level of heart and soul, but evaluating them purely on the level of, do they make me look good? Do they give me power? Do they give me influence? Do they give me money or success, or like that? And so there's also a temptation with Mars and the South Node in Libra to, we might be looking at the karma of our selfish motives in the social arenas of our lives. I'm only going to marry someone if they have money, would be a very Mars and Libra kind of thing to be faced with, to be recognizing, oh, I have a way of looking for relationships that up until this point hasn't gotten me into a relationship with someone that's really compatible, because my desires have been rooted in certain kinds of advantages that a relationship will provide me with. And I'm recognizing that these things are not altogether healthy. But like that, and I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying everyone's going to experience that, but that's be one example of Mars in Libra with the South Node. Some of these things that we're mentioning, remember, they're going to sort of blow up really big around the middle of October, specifically because that's when Mars in Libra will be culminating at those late degrees, squaring Pluto, and then boom, on the 14th, we get the solar eclipse in late Libra, also squaring Pluto. Number 5 would be any kind of focus on confronting unethical, unjust, or unfair behavior in ourselves, in our families, with our kids, at school, in our jobs, our workplaces, our marriage or love lives. That wherever there is a need to look at where things have not been fair, have not been balanced, or they've not been ethical, or they have been unjust in some way, that we will probably be confronted with those issues, and they'll be magnified throughout the, between late August and mid-October, especially with the peak coming around middle of October. Now, it's possible that we see some of these things actually manifesting in the news. For example, one thing that I thought was really interesting, I was looking back through periods of time where there were, where the South Node was in Libra, and then we got Mars going through Libra at the exact same time. And I found it really interesting because one of the things that came up while Mars was in Libra with the South Node of the Moon in 1987, there were 2 events, and I found a bunch of them, but I thought I'd just use this example because there's some other interesting periods where South Node in Libra, South Node in Libra and Mars were together, but I just focused on this one. So this was around October of 1987, where the Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement is reached, and the agreement would lead to NAFTA. Now, people probably don't care a lot about that, or you may have very specific political, feelings or thoughts about NAFTA or whatever. The point is not to celebrate that or judge it in any way, but just to point out that here you have the reaching of a diplomatic agreement being sort of executed, and it has a long karmic history behind it. That's a very South Node, Mars, Libra kind of thing. But the tipping of the scales also happened on October 19th, which is sometimes referred to as Black Monday, where shark markets, where stock markets fell really sharply all around the world, triggering the fear of a return of the Great Depression. Now, that's a very famous period where the scales tip dramatically and very suddenly, especially in a cardinal sign like Libra, and there's a kind of reckoning with, we'll just call it a history of financial behavior, right? So, and this is, so that the South Node Mars Libra combination can lead to these sudden karmic tipping points. Very important to just keep aware of those things. I went back to, I think it was 1968. There was another one that I looked at where the South Node was in Libra and Mars crossed the South Node. And you had a couple of different things happening. One of them was really interesting. I think it was Nixon was elected when the Mars crossed the South Node. And then the other thing that happened was there was a university, or maybe several universities, that decided to allow women to attend. Up until that point, they had been for men only. And that also is that kind of tipping of the karmic scales with a concern for equality and balance and things like that. So you can look back historically and see what's happening in the collective, and these moments tend to be moments that encapsulate, agreements, compromises, diplomacy, the tipping of the karmic scales, different kinds of conflicts. The tests, I think it was in 68, there was also a major development in the Vietnam War that happened during that period of time. I think it was that they were going to send, I can't remember, so I won't even try. But anyway, the different kinds of social advantages versus disadvantages highlighted, like the women being able to attend school with men, for example, is a moment of karmic balancing, so to speak. So at any rate, I hope that this gives you some really good things to think about. Mars and Libra can carry a lot of these themes that I've talked about today, regardless of whether it's with the South Node or not, but it gets amplified. It becomes very powerful, and there's a sense of history and facing things, old things, and also the wisdom of Libra more powerfully amplified right now as a way of keeping us from maybe the worst of Aries, which is maybe the tendency to get into power struggles, conflicts, war, battle, to want to win rather than work things out. So it's like there's old stuff that we're dealing with. This has a history behind it, and that's the important thing. The Libran wisdom right now may be keeping us from the worst, but it also may be there may be real tests in the Libran with these Libran themes that come up as a way of sort of measuring our growth. Okay, that's it for today. I hope that this was useful for all of you guys. Please, again, tell me your thoughts as you're experiencing these transits. Leave your comments in the comments section. If you ever have a story to share, use the hashtag grabbed and then tell us the transit, and then tell us your story, or email it to us if you prefer. grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. I can't wait to hear from you guys and see what kinds of stories you have to share. Hopefully another storytelling episode in the next month or two. All right. That's it for today. I hope you guys are having a good one. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.